Hello and welcome to GDB World. In today's video we'll be taking a look at how we can make this stylized lava material in Substancedesigner. If you enjoyed the video and wish to support the channel, please like and subscribe. And with that, let's jump straight into the video. To start us off, let's take a look at some of the elements that make up the graph. For the foundation, we're reusing a rock creation technique found in one of my previous videos, so we won't be covering it in this video, but a link to the content can be found in the description. The only extra details that I've added is the secondary rock foundation blended into the material, to allow for more randomness with the lava glow and overall height of the material. After that, we're going to create some small rocks. This is just to be distributed across the whole material, but also dynamically change inside the lava. Then we've got the main lava flow, followed by the diffuse, AO, emissive, height map, normal, and then roughness. Once you're happy with the foundation, we can make the lava glow. So we're going to start out with just creating a frame so we can put it down at the bottom. And then we're going to bump in a levels node. And then we're just going to invert the white and black values, and it gives us this really nice, almost like light shining through the rocks sort of effect. And then we put in the edge text. This will just highlight the cracks for us. And then we're going to blend those in with a bit of a blur, and then invert that to then be blended in together with the original shape as a max lighten, and then end off the effect with a blur so it's ready to be used at the diffuse stage of the material. Next we're going to move on to the small rocks. So these rocks are just pretty simple. We're going to make 3 of them using just a pebaloid and a sales 1. Blend those two together with a divide, and then we're going to blend in just another shape. This time we're going to use a pyramid. Just going to transform 2D because I just want to get the point of the pyramid, and then blend that into the rock so it's got a nice high point. I'm going to use a directional warp here, and we're going to blend in the crystals just to sharpen up those edges a little bit, give it a bit more variation, some indentations as well. And then we're essentially going to repeat that 3 more times. What you're seeing here is we're just putting it through 2 histogram scans. That's just to trim the edges, but sort of not put too much contrast so that we can keep a little bit of the bevel on the rock itself. We don't want it too strong. For the other 2 rocks, I'm just using a series of gradient maps and then changing their angles to give us some different looking shapes. Once we're done with that, we then want to create a tile sampler node, and we're just going to put in 3 inputs and just put all 3 of our rocks into those inputs. And then we're just going to put maybe like a 20 amount in both of them. This will sort of change as you sort of see fit. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, don't really worry too much about what values you put in each of these fields, just make it as random and organic as possible. So it's just, you know, a bit of offset, bit of random position, not too much, otherwise they start merging together. And then we can look at adding in other things like disbursement maps, like what we're doing here. We're actually going to use the shadows node to help us create this disbursement map. And the reason for that is I want it to sort of fall down the shape. So we're just using a histogram select with it, bump it into the normal, and then put it into your vector displacement. Next I'm just going to create a histogram scan, and then we're just going to make a little mask for the map itself. That's just to remove a lot of the rocks. It just makes it look a lot more organic. And then we're going to hit that into a blur, and now that's ready to be used with the final shape. Now it's onto the lava flow base shape. So this is probably where we'll spend most of our time. But it starts out with the waveform 1. And then we're just going to transform 2D and move it upwards so it's vertical. And then we're going to use a multi-directional warp grayscale with a pale and noise, adjust those levels a little bit. And then we're just going to blow out the values a little bit, so then it gives us this nice wobbly sort of gradient. And then we're going to use that gradient with a directional warp and some Gaussian spots. And it gives us this sort of liquidy effect. Then we're going to bring it back to a silhouette again with a histogram scan. And then we're going to use a multi-directional grayscale warp again, this time with a pabloid. This shape itself sort of influences the whole lava shape the most out of any of the nodes. So you could probably actually use it to animate the angle to give it a bit of a flow as well if you wanted to. Next we can move into the detailing part of it. So we're going to just use the rocks again. This time we're going to use histogram scan just to make a mask from them. We're going to blend that in with our original silhouette. So we want to invert this one, and then we're just going to add linear dodge the rocks into it. Now we're going to introduce some height into the shape with an ambient occlusion node, followed by a blur. And then we're going to use that ambient occlusion node with the quantized node. Now the quantized node is actually going to be the node that's going to give us the nice lava sort of stylized lines. So we're going to split this off, so the top bit's going to be for height reasons and the bottom bit's just for line details. And we're going to create a section at the bottom here just for masks. And we're going to use this mask to sort of help trim out parts of the quantized node that we don't necessarily like. So around the edges you'll see there's quite a lot of lines, or quite thick lines, and we tend to want to sort of trim those out. So we can do that with beveling the mask a little bit, and then we just use just a simple blender node, bump that in there, and then we can subtract it out from that one. That also revert us back to a nice black background as well, which is sort of where we want to be. And then finally we want to put it through just another blur node, again being consistent with the blurs so that we keep it as soft as possible and we don't have any weird artifacts popping up. Then into a directional warp, we'll reuse this one probably around about 3 times. And I'm just adjusting the mask a little bit because I wasn't overly happy with how the rocks are falling, just to give me a bit more sort of variation with it. Now we're going to create the hole in the middle so that there's a little bit of a parting where the lava sort of dissipates. Then we're going to make sure we use that same directional warp. Since we're sort of creating a new shape at this point, we're going to make sure it mirrors the same details as above. Then a bevel node to reintroduce the height values, and then blur those out. Just make another copy of the directional warp again, and this time it's going to be the original height blend we created. We're just going to blend that in together with our new height values we just created with the cutout. And the reason for this is we want the edges to sort of have quite a distinct value to each other, so that when we colour them they can get sort of a nice yellow border when it goes around a rock or around the edges of the actual main rock itself. Now we're just creating a bit of a diffuse and height variation map, so this is just a noise essentially. So just creating a simple Perlin noise, warping it by itself, gives us the sort of watery or slightly liquidy look, and then we can blend that in with the original shape. Just gives you a little bit more sort of slopiness throughout the height map itself as well. Now we're just creating essentially what would be the main mask. So we use an inverted version of this mask and a non-inverted throughout the blending process. So we'll get to the blending process once we start on the diffuse part of the material. Now we're just using a height blend to blend in our rocks with an offset of 0.5. make any final adjustments to the graph that you want to, and then we can move on to the diffuse part of the graph. So it's just going to be a mixture of the two heights, so our cutout height with our original height. Then I'm going to reuse the same noise that we used for the height. And the next thing we're going to want to do for the diffuse is sort of make it a little bit glassy. So we're just going to use the same noise and just use a slope blur with the clouds. And then we can just decrease the samples a little bit till we get blurry sort of look to it. And then just decrease the size and the pixels as well. It just gives you a little bit more of a stretched look as well. And then just lightly blend that on for multiply. And then we can start using our gradient editor. Right now we're just going to work on the detailing part of the lava. And that's just going to be blurred in with two multi-directional warps and blended together with a multiplier just to darken the values a little bit further as well as warping them. And then we just use a gradient map, just nice light colors with some transparent values to ensure that it blends in nicely with the original shape. And then finally we can move on to the rocks themselves. So the rocks themselves are just going to be put through a normal, then a curvature node, and then we put that curvature node through a gradient map, and we just close the values quite close together to give us some nice light lines on the edges of the rock. And then finally we're going to blend in the same gradient map we used for the original lava, but we're just going to put in our glow and then blend in those two rock shapes there. Now we want to look at using the emissive, so it's just going to be basically the same gradient maps we created above. We just duplicate them down, blend them together, and then pump them into the emissive map itself. Just adjust the values a little bit and make sure in the detailing part of the lava, make the lines a little bit darker so that you can just multiply it on, so that they show up nice and strong on the material. If you're not going to use emissive, that's why we have the option to turn it on and off in the diffuse side of things, but often you probably want to use a bit of both just to give yourself a little bit more power when you come to using it in game or if you're rendering. Finally we can work on the roughness itself. It's just reusing those masks we created before to focus on different elements in the material and really change those values with the levels node. After all is done, all that's left to do is expose all the elements in the graph, so you can use it in your inspector or in Substance Painter, however you want to use it. Other than that, that's all that I have for you for today's video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and I hope you have a lovely day.